I'm Matt Gibberd, co-founder of The Modern House and author of A Modern Way to Live. I believe that the most successful homes are designed according to the same 5 principles: space, light, materials, nature, and decoration. In this series, we explore each of these principles, tour some fantastic homes, and meet the people who design and live in them. Along the way, we'll show how these ideas can be applied to any living space and how they might just make for happier homes.
Hello, Matt.
How are you?
Come on in. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Today, I've come to see the architect Laura Dewe Mathews at her family home in East London. The aptly named Gingerbread House has wit and whimsy baked into its walls. It teaches us the importance of balancing ingredients, in this case wood, galvanised steel, and the green garnish of nature. It's a great example of letting things age naturally and show off their imperfections. And above all, it proves that being playful with materials can really bring a home to life, whether cladding it in tongues of timber, dramatically varying the door sizes, or cutting a hole in the wall so that you can order your morning tea from bed.
These are fancy butts. They're called fancy butt shingles, and they're typically used as a kind of decorative relief in a small part of the gable end. It's Canadian cedar. It weathers really beautifully. You leave it untreated.
Yeah.
It has a kind of beautiful softness over time, but trying to be a bit playful, I guess. And I guess when you have these very hard contemporary forms, it feels like it's nice to soften them a bit and to have a gentleness to them, which you kind of need the rounds, I find.
The rounds with the rectangles.
The rounds and the rectangles.
Yeah.
Mix up the geometry.
It's like lots of sort of tongue sticking out or something, isn't it? And that's what gives it the playfulness. So fancy butt shingles.
Yeah, that's the term.
They're very fancy.
They're really fancy, I think so.
Yeah.
We've gone fancy.
Yeah, they're well fancy.
Yeah, thanks.
And is this why it has the name the Gingerbread House?
Yeah, exactly. Neil, who used to live over the road, it was his nickname he gave the house. He felt like it looked a bit like we should have a Hansel and a Gretel living here. I hadn't built a house before, and I was hoping to find something that we could, I guess, modify an existing structure. And then this place came along after 3 years of looking, and this was a car body workshop. It had 4 brick walls, tin roof. Clearly was going to involve something much more kind of complex in terms of, there was no drainage, no sewer connection, no gas. It did have electricity and water. So I was kind of thrown in the deep end, which was a lot more than I had anticipated taking on, but it was an amazing challenge. In fact, it almost should be what every architect has to do is build their own house first before they're allowed to go and build anyone else's. So it all became about trying to bring light and views in without feeling very conscious of every person who walks past.
Yeah.
And also, in terms of the detailing on the outside of the house, wanting to be quite clear about this new volume that then sits up out of the walls. There's a kind of like a seam line that runs across, which is in galvanized steel that then wraps around the windows, that creates punctuation between the old and the new. From outside, it's quite a confusing building to read. People don't quite know what they're going to get inside. In order to kind of feel some sense of the old and the new knitting together, I kept the sill lines just lower than the top of the brick wall.
I must say that's my favourite detail of the house.
Right, thanks.
The way the windows melt into the wall, it's really satisfying, I think. What's immediately apparent is you can kind of feel how it's all been put together, right? So the structure of it, you've just left exposed inside. Why have you done that? Why haven't you plastered it and painted it?
Because you don't have to, so it's like a saving. I've got my card model here on the table, but as I made models at school and you think about forms coming together, this is like a super scale version. So this is cross-laminated timber, which is plywood on a construction scale. You've got your kind of 3 plies here of timber,
Oh yes, a sandwich.
In a sandwich. It allows you to be very honest about how a building's been put together. In many buildings, engineering is really sophisticated and complex, how all the elements are coming together. And here it's just so elegantly simple. You know, you are screwing pieces of timber together, big planes, and you can, to some extent, make openings in the same way that you might in a cardboard model, and the way it will hold together is true to how structurally it will in life hold together. We had a road closure and a crane, and it was so exciting. Kids walking to school in the morning, kind of wondering what's going on, and by the end of the day, the 31 panels had been put together. You know, it took them then a week to consolidate all the fixings, but from a concrete slab in the morning, we could actually go up into our bedroom space and really felt like being in a tree house then, because all surfaces were timber.
That's so exciting. That's like having a sort of pot noodle of a house where it's just instant.
Yeah, we had the instant house.
One of the main principles of modernist architecture is a truth to materials.
Right.
I think that's very well summarised in this house. You're allowing the materials to age naturally and to actually show that ageing process. Why do you think that that's important? Why do you advocate that?
It's about the stories objects can hold as a result. If you have a material that ages, that changes over time, if you have a piece of kind of plastic, it's just never going to change. It might get a bit dirty, but I mean, it's essentially never going to change. Whereas a piece of brass, wood, you know, you see the use over time, you see the handling, and also it can also carry a story purely of the manufacture, of the hand that made it. Yeah. Which is so powerful and beautiful. And I think as we are in this age where so many of the things we surround ourselves with are mass-produced, those objects really jump out as objects with character and soul. I think every house needs a chair with the upholstery bursting out of it. I mean, I have at least two. Excellent. But why doesn't that bother you in the way that some people would be bothered by it? Yeah, no. Well, the funny thing was, actually, now you say that, is I met a woman who lives on the street who I hadn't met the whole time we've lived here. It's been about 10 years now. And she said, "Oh, that's your house." "Oh, yes." "And why does it look so unfinished on the outside?" So, you know, everyone's different, aren't they? Yeah. You know, and that's life, and that's what's amazing about life, is that we all do like different things, and just because for me it's beautiful, it's not necessarily going to be beautiful for someone else. But that's about the kind of the toil and the beauty of the materials, and, you know, furniture that's been made possibly to some extent in ways that they aren't being made anymore, and enjoying all the textures that then come with it as well. I want to ask about sustainability. Yeah. How did that feed into the choices that you made with the materials here? As you see upstairs, the samples I've got most of anything, are timber samples. I really love wood, and I think it's such a versatile material, and one that we should use wherever possible. So it's, you know, it's the table, it's the walls, it's the furniture. It's a nourishing material, isn't it? You know, it gives us oxygen and a shade, and then you take that tree down, you plant another one. It's so giving. It's like one of the greatest assets we have. So tell me about the kitchen, because it's lovely, it's quite simple. Did you make it yourselves, or where did you get it from? So we have this amazing guy, Roy Middleton, who made it, who's the most brilliant man. So we've got a few IKEA carcasses hidden away, and then he made this kind of bespoke unit in the middle, but it's this is a melamine faced plywood, which is so satisfying because you don't need to decorate it, you just make a cut and you're done. Yeah. And we've avoided handles, which is pretty satisfying. Yeah, yeah. There's a little saving there. This is all stainless steel. It's actually stainless steel wrapped around MDF, but again, I guess part of trying to keep the material palette quite tight, so there's quite a bit of galvanized steel detailing on the outside, and then we bought a bit of the galvanized detailing in with the exposed conduit in certain parts of the house, so it felt like it would tie in nicely. In terms of the design of it as well, we wanted it to feel like a piece of furniture, you know, so we got it standing away from the edges and with this kind of upstand on it and the shelf. So as with the unit opposite as well, which is the same kind of palette of materials, you're trying to still really read this volume, which felt like those proportions were really nice to try and hold on to.
That's a really interesting point, actually, setting it slightly away from the walls. Just elevates it, doesn't it?
When you build something directly up to a surface, it starts to mess with the overall volume. Whereas if you can hold it in, it does allow you to still mentally read the space without it. I do think of it really in a way as another material. You know, the green, the outdoors, making sure that you've got a natural
The green
backdrop.
definitely feels like another material. Is that jasmine?
It is, yeah. You've just missed its peak. This is a beautiful evergreen magnolia here, which just has these leaves that you just want to kind of embrace.
So lovely.
Got a swing here for my daughter.
Does Rita use this a lot then?
A minor concession, because she said, there's nowhere for me to play in the garden. So you can put a swing.
Here, I have an extremely chic swing that we're happy to look at.
Oh, with some concrete beneath you, so go carefully. Don't have too much fun.
It's so successful, Laura. I mean, you know, if it wasn't for the sound of the occasional car, you really wouldn't. I don't think you would perceive that you were in such an urban environment. It's such an oasis. I think spatially this house is fascinating because you've got what you would call an enfilade, haven't you? Which is a very old way of arranging space. In fact, you find it in National Trust houses where you walk down the enfilade through a series of quite grand rooms.
To the next room, to the next room,
So tell us about why did you choose to do it like that?
Again, the kind of drive with the whole project was to create as grand a sense of proportions as possible. So to have, with the site we were given, the biggest possible room, essentially, but at the same time you don't want it to be this homogeneous mass. You then want within that to create definition and punctuation. As far as possible, we've pushed out this room is as wide as the site, and from the wall at the back with the mirror on it to the wall with the vines growing up is the full length of the site. So you know, at certain points you can really feel the full expanse, the most that you can feel with the plot we were given. But at the same time, you then want to create these definitions to allow a kind of sense of comfort and being in each space, that you walk onto the rug, this is a softer, quieter space. There's also a kind of diminishing proportions with the openings as you go through, which I think also it creates an illusion of even more space than we have. Corridors, what are they good for? Nothing. Let's get rid of the corridors. Front halls. Psh. The rug is a really important element in this room, I think, because it then suddenly changes the sound as you kind of walk across it, the feel, and it defines this then more comfortable, more relaxing space.
Well, it does. As you say, I think because you've got a change of scale with the ceiling height and then the rug just grounding you as well. The acoustics are very different, the light levels are different.
Exactly.
And it feels like you want to sit down and be cozy.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a Finnish architect called Juhani Palasmaa, and I love this. He talks about the door handle as being the handshake of the building.
Yeah, amazing.
Which was such a lovely metaphor, but the idea, of course, that, you know, tactility is extremely important in a building. So how have you thought about the way that the house feels to touch?
Here, I guess the walls are incredibly tactile. You know, there's a lot of stroking the walls going on. I really like to bring fabric into the palette of materials, so you see it as actually an architectural material. So the way we've got it upstairs, creating a division between the bathroom and the bedroom, and it becomes a complete surface. And even paper, I find such a beautiful material, so I love, we've got this piece of work up on the wall by Ron King that's a folded alphabet, to have these more tactile materials, these materials that do have a fragility and a softness, can work really nicely against then the harder materials, which I think they're beautiful too in their own way, or they highlight each other's beauty. I think what we didn't realise with the cross-laminated timber was what a big player it would be in terms of the atmosphere of the house, and how you did then need to take a certain amount of judgment about the balance of the materials.
So that it didn't feel like a sauna.
So it didn't feel like a sauna,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, you know, and also that you don't have too many kind of jazzy things going on, because it's got so much character, the wood, but it's so pleasing to live with it. It does a huge amount to the atmosphere. This was the one room in the original part of the house that we actually decided to paint over the cross-laminated timber and bring some pattern in. Yeah. Which, you know, I love pattern, but it felt like you couldn't with the timber. It would have been too much going on. This is in the newer part of the house where we didn't choose to use cross-laminated timber.
Why did you not want to?
It felt like we had enough wood. I mean, not that we haven't used a lot of wood in the furniture, but it felt like it would be nice to have a contrast to that. Although I spent far too many man hours worrying about what shade of white it should be, which you know, I'm going to go back to wood, I think. White's a nightmare. We were going to use a kind of clay paint to have a bit of texture, but again, I'm a bit resistant to be too on trend, so I felt like
keep it classical.
So the big liberating element then in extending the house was putting a carpet down, which is a sisal,
really nice
carpet, which you know, gives the texture I think that the timber gives in the other parts of the house. And I think it's you know, it's like a musical composition, or like a recipe for, you know, you've got to get the balance right of the ingredients, and I think you need your carb, but you need your spice, and you need your you know, your textural element and your moment of joy, or whatever it is. I quite liked here being quite playful with the height. So here, this is a kind of connecting door through to the existing part of the house, but then wanting to have this very generous doorway into Rita's bedroom.
That's so lovely. And why did you do that?
A lot of things in conventional design are just enough. I guess also it's creating this really nice, more pronounced connection between the two spaces if you've got that extra bit of width and height.
You've cut a hole out of the cross-laminated timber.
Yeah.
So that's
just because you can.
Just because you can.
Yeah. So that's really pleasing. Yeah. Just you've got to embrace the benefits of this construction type, I think. And so it just felt like it was this opportunity again to get these softer shapes in. But yeah, the idea is you can put your morning request for a cup of tea through. Yeah. And hope someone responds.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, you know, it's so...
2 Earl Greys.
Yeah.
No, he's not there. It's such a fun thing.
As Gordon Matter Clark shows, it's pretty terrifying what our walls are made of as he makes these big cuts through buildings. Yeah. But here it's not, it's just pure wood, which is so... you know, I feel very lucky for that I know what everything is. There's no kind of crazy man-made materials there. I like the architecture to sit back so that you can then allow the personality to take over and not have to kind of constantly spend your life putting things away. So I did want it to be this very practical kitchen, so everything's to hand, but then you end up with a few slightly weird random objects like this very inappropriate pair of ladies' legs to open the bottle of your beer, maybe.
Okay, all right, okay. I thought it was a nutcracker, quite literally.
A nut, yes, right. And then it's just kind of random objects. My daughter's collection of crystal making going on here. So yeah, it's just signs of life, you know. This is a tile we brought back from Sicily.
Clearly, you have a personal connection to all these things. There's a story behind each of them. I imagine, you know, if we went through each one by one, I'm sure you could tell me when you got it and where you got it and why it's there, and that's the key thing, isn't it?
I'm not a big fan of kind of shopping, outright shopping, so I prefer when things kind of come to you in some kind of more organic way.
Yeah.
You know, there's a bit of editing probably that goes on. Not every object my daughter makes at school gets put up on the shelf, but you know, these guys have. They're here.
Yeah. Does she complain like my daughter's when she finds things in the recycling bin?
She does.
It's really
I have to do it
moment.
at night, the night before the recycling goes out. Absolutely.
Yeah. What does Rita, your 8-year-old, make of this house?
Well, she's very affectionate about it, but I don't know whether that's just because that's how you, as a child, you feel about your own home. But it's really nice, you know, when we go away and she comes back, my home, my bed. You know, she's very fond of it, and it was really lovely in building the extension. She was just about old enough to understand drawings, and so we would have a funny time on the computer with me kind of adding in elements into the architectural drawing of the cats climbing up the ladder, or her favourite toy sitting on the end of the bed, and within that trying to help her think spatially as well. She moved from having the tiniest room in the house. In the original house, she had a little room that was 2 meters by 2 meters, pretty much you could just get a bed in it. So then when we made the house a bit bigger and she was able to have a proper sized room with a bunk bed, it feels like complete luxury now. So she really shows it off to her friends. Yeah.
So how would you like her to look back on it when she's older?
Well, it would be lovely if she thought of it as a tree house. Maybe the lens of a childhood memory could slightly elevate it to that. You know, we're really surrounded by trees and we are in this little wooden box, and so that would be really nice if that was how she looked back on it, I think.
I love it when a house feels magical, and I think this does feel magical. That's brilliant, Laura. I think that's... Yeah, that's been fascinating.
Excellent. Sun's catching up with us.
Exactly. I didn't want to put you through any more sun dodging. That's the truth.
That slow bit. I mean, it's been kind of nice in a way because it's literally gone across the model like a sundial.
Ah.
Yeah.